the very fact that you're in an unwell chronic disease type of situation, and you likely have these infections, means you have a chronic inflammatory pattern that's been dysregulated, and inflammation blocks detox, so you're gonna have a toxic level.
It sounds like, generally speaking, at the base of a lot of these cases, it's not wrong to start with supporting detox pathways. A lot of these things are gentle, right?
And how do you suggest people start opening up detox pathways?
You've got this tissue compartment, you've got a blood compartment, then you've got excretion. So first,
Hello and welcome back to the Vibrant Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Emmie Brown, here with my co-host, the incomparable Melissa Gentile. Today, we are diving into the cutting-edge world of detoxification and wellness with a true pioneer, Dr. Chris Shade. As the founder and CEO of Quicksilver Scientific, Dr. Shade is renowned for his groundbreaking work in detoxification, heavy metal testing, and advanced phospholipid delivery systems that optimize nutrient absorption. His research and innovative technologies have transformed how we approach cleansing the body from environmental toxins. Dr. Shade's expertise in mercury and heavy metal toxicity, combined with his passion for integrative health, has earned him a global reputation as a leader in this field. He's not only reshaping the detox industry, but also empowering individuals to take control of their health with science-based solutions. We're so excited to welcome Dr. Shade today as he shares his knowledge on the science of detoxification and its impact on the immune system and why optimizing these processes are essential when addressing chronic infections like Lyme. Dr. Shade, thank you so much for being here.
well, thank you, Emmie. Thank you, Melissa. I always love coming and talking about how everything fits together.
We're so excited to dive into everything we're going to get into today, from detox to Lyme to Quicksilver. But I do want to start us out just a little bit kind of on your background. So, Dr. Shade, you've built an incredible reputation in the world of detoxification and functional medicine in general. But we're curious to know, what was the moment or experience in your life that first made you passionate about detox and understanding chronic illness at a deeper level? Like, how did you get to where you are?
Yeah, everybody expects you to say something like, when I was, 15 years old, my mother had Lyme disease and it was horrible. And I swore that it would never happen to anybody else. And those make these great little like TED functional medicine talks, 5-minuters. But it's like reality that, rarely ever happens that way. And so it was sort of a long route to get there. And I was, I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is a steel town. So I had a nice toxic foundation. I had a mouth filled with dental amalgams, and I didn't really care about any of that stuff. And I was, ate cheesesteaks, just to like thumb my nose at nutrition. And then everything shifted in college. There might have been psychedelics involved, and all of a sudden I'm an organic farmer. One thing led to another. Now, really was. I was a Northeast Organic Farming Associated, NOFA certified organic biodynamic farmer up in the Northeast. I got like way into that stuff, and everything was like heal with food and whole foods and everything, and I was like this scientist guy, and I just like left that behind and went down this natural thing. And I was like, we're all into our microbiome and stuff, but that was all soil microbiome. And so I understood that a lot. And then I also joked that I went out of business the year Whole Foods came around. This is a long time ago. And then I went back to graduate school and I started looking at pollution from agriculture. I did a master's, then I did a PhD, and I ended up looking at mercury as a global pollutant and developed and patented some testing around mercury, separating different forms of mercury. And, relevant to us, that's methylmercury in fish and inorganic mercury from the dental amalgams. And then ethyl mercury was part of the vaccines. And so all these different forms of mercury behave really differently. So I got this testing going. I started a company and was looking at environmental testing. I wanted to jump back because I used to be in organic farming. I wanted to get into human health. And I did. When the last economic crash in 2008 happened, I jumped like full on into just taking samples from integrative and functional medicine. Everybody talks about functional medicine these days, but integrative were like, those were the real wild, those are the cowboys in the beginning, really blending East-West stuff, really blending natural and and pharmaceuticals. And so, one of my first mentors was Dietrich Klinghardt, and Lyme was huge back then. And Hal Huggins was the other one. And so I started doing this testing of different forms of mercury for functional and integrative medicine. And then once you're testing something, you got to come up with a solution. So I started working on myself. Of course, we're going to hear through these stories. So many of the things I developed, like all the Lyme line, was just to save my own hide. And so I got all my amalgams out, and I was doing all the testing on it, and I wasn't getting better. In fact, I was getting worse and worse. I was using DMSA, and then I developed an oral supplement for mercury chelation that was essentially a super specific binder for getting forms of mercury in the GI. And then I needed to develop some stuff to get it out of the body down to the GI. And that led me to doing liposomes of glutathione, vitamin C, lipoic acid, stuff that I needed for mercury detox. And so we started with the testing, then we went into developing systems for detoxification. And then the big thing that we did in the beginning was get people away from the chelators, DMSA and DPS, onto, hey, look, this is a problem with your central detoxification system. It's the glutathione system. We have to rev up all the parts of it, and everything starts to come out. And since we had developed these delivery systems, we started applying them to a lot of different things. And so it was mercury detox, all metal detox, all environmental toxins. Then you start developing cardiometabolic products, immune products, longevity products, hormone products, all using this delivery system, these liposomes, nanoemulsions, different ways to get compounds that, this is the thing, we're taking capsules and capsules and capsules and barely moving the needle. How do we get that into a form that goes right into the blood, all these different phytonutrients, hit all these targets all at once, and you really move the needle? And so we started doing that with mercury detox, and we continue to cross into all kinds of different things. And, fast forward to this day, we've got a bunch of things for helping with Lyme and viral recovery that all fit together with the detox thing. Because as we talk further, we're going to toxins, immune dysregulation, infections are all linked together. It's really hard to pick one apart. And so that's sort of what got us here today.
I love it. And real quick, can you define exactly what a liposome is?
Yeah, so a liposome is a phospholipid bilayer vesicle. So picture a little balloon, but tiny nano size, like 100 nanometers, and a nanometer is a millionth of a millimeter. So we're really small, and it's made out of the same thing that your cell membranes are made out of. So it's like a tiny little cell. And so we isolate phosphatidylcholine, and then we make these solutions that have glutathione or vitamin C or B complex in it, and we drop these phospholipids in. They form these spheres around the water with the nutrient in it, and then we break them down to little size so that they'll go right through the oral cavity and into circulation. So it becomes this vehicle that brings in something that you don't have a transporter or a natural absorption mechanism for. It also protects something like glutathione from the peptidases that are breaking it up. And so that's one of the particles that we use for delivery, and that's what people most know. Oh, it's a liposomal this, a liposomal. So you say liposomal glutathione, it means you made all these little spheres around your glutathione, and they increase the bioavailability. They make it go really quick. It'll absorb right through your oral cavity. You'll get peaks in the blood in 15 to 25 minutes. And so you get it a lot more in, and you get it in really quick. And then when we go to other molecules, like if we're looking at like a mast cell stabilizer, and we want quercetin and luteolin, these are fat soluble to alcohol soluble. And so we make a different particle. Now, instead of a droplet of water in the middle, we have a droplet of oil, and we're dissolving these oil and alcohol solubles into those. And that's called a nanoemulsion. And so we do things like vitamin D and vitamin A, vitamin K, CBD, and then all these what are called small molecule phytonutrients. Quercetin, luteolin, resveratrol, berberine, silymarin, DIM. We do those in these nanoemulsion particles. And the beauty there, you can start stacking a lot of different things together in one formula. And you can have one particle with multiple different phytonutrients in it that all hit a certain target and all come in all at the same time. Something like quercetin might take 5 hours to come to a peak in the blood, but we can peak it in, 20 to 40 minutes. And so you can really get a big change out of the system, and then the stuff metabolizes away. So this delivery system is able to do stuff that normal capsules don't. Like, just as an example, we have something called AMPK charge. Now, this is an AMPK activator. What's that? That's what's activated when you carb restrict, when you water fast, when you're on a keto diet. In fact, we used to call it keto before 6, because you could take this and be in ketosis all day long and then eat carbs at night. The next day, go right back into ketosis. And, so what's in there? There's things like berberine and quercetin and resveratrol and silymarin and dim and cinnamon. These are things that other people take. What doses? 20 milligrams berberine, 40 milligrams of all the rest, 1 teaspoon of that, and you flip into ketosis. You measure it in your blood in like 30 to 60 minutes, because all these compounds all get absorbed and all peak in the blood all at once. And so you're able to really move the needle when you use these formulas. So that's the Quicksilver difference. The formulas that get everything in and stacking the right molecules together to get the right biochemical effect.
It's fascinating stuff, Dr. Shade. And I have to ask, this was a question I received a while back. With something like a water-soluble compound, I think about a liposomal vitamin C, right?
Yeah.
What's the point? What's the benefit there if it's going to be absorbed regardless?
Yeah. So, vitamin C, you run at about 20% absorption once you get up to about a gram. And so this will increase how much you get in, 2 to 3 times. And you'll be like, oh, why would I take 2 to 3 grams? I mean, eventually you're going to hit a bowel tolerance. So there's less of a bowel tolerance. But there is still something magic. Like, you get to something like glutathione, you're not going to absorb that. And so you really need it. So C, you don't need it as much. So it's a question, do I want to spend the money on it? But there's something about the delivery is from outside of your body to the blood, and then from the blood, it facilitates delivery into the cells too. And so there's something extra about how far it gets into the metabolism of the cells. And we see when people take liposomal glutathione when they're feeling sick, they get a response that they normally, or liposomal C, they get a response that they normally don't get. And the phosphatidylcholine shells that are bringing them in, they do a couple different things. One is they'll merge with the cell membranes and increase the delivery of that nutrient intracellularly. And at the same time, the cell membrane gets to eat up all that phosphatidylcholine. It becomes a nutrient. Phosphatidylcholine itself has been a therapeutic for years for its ability to build cell membranes and build liver health and build brain health. So you're getting this 1-2 punch of the 2 coming in, and you're getting more delivery all the way into an intracellular environment. But, if you got to decide which one to take and which not to take, C is easier and cheaper. It's not too bad to be just using a powder.
Right. Oh, that's super helpful. And what I'm hearing is it gets further when you're using the liposomal form. It's getting further. And you have the benefit of the choline too, to help further support that cell membrane.
Yes.
Awesome. Wow. It covers all bases there. Before we get too deep into the products and how they work, I'd love to touch on a little bit more about functional medicine testing. So right now, what are your favorite functional medicine tests, particularly for detox pathways, assessing those pathways? What are you really loving right now?
Yeah, we haven't perfected pathway tests as much as I really would like. So I don't use a ton of them. There used to be these ones you take an aspirin and something else, and see acetaminophen and see where it goes in the body. I mean, it kind of shows you some stuff, but it's not really big. And when we talk about the phases, phase 3 is the hardest one to test for. And one of the tests that we have looks at that really well, at least in the kidneys, but not in the liver. And so phase 3 is the movement of toxin complexes like toxin glutathione complex or toxin sulfate complex, either through the liver into the bile or through the kidney into the urine. And we don't have good markers for that. We have one for inorganic mercury in the blood and in the urine, and that is directly a phase 3 measure of the kidney phase 3, but then we don't know necessarily how well that liver-based one through the GI is. So that stuff isn't perfect. And now when you get into Global toxins. I mean, Vibrant has a great panel of a lot of different environmental toxins. There's so many environmental toxins, so there's a lot of stuff that we can't measure all that well. I mean, we do mold testing, but that one's, give them a bunch of glutathione, maybe they'll spit some mold out, maybe they won't. Maybe it'll be higher ones, maybe it'll be lower. I mean, those
Tricky.
those are a little bit tricky, but
Yeah.
if people have the money to test, there's so much that you can look at in different inflammatory markers and immune markers. You look at a whole bunch of toxins, you can look at a whole bunch of infections, but you just can't, you got to look for a general picture. We don't have everything totally isolated out like this perfect functional testing that we'd like to have. But there's a lot of available testing. In fact, tonight, Shannon Smith from Turnpaw Health is going to be showing a bunch of cases that they did at Turnpaw with a bunch of our products, and and how they approach it. You'll see tons of different testing, and there's so many autoimmune markers now. I mean, Cyrex does a great job. I know you guys have a lot of food markers, so there's a lot of stuff that we can pepper in there to see different aspects of what's going on. As long as as the clinician, you can keep open to this global thing. I mean, a lot of, like, the worst application I see of it is when they'll go to some person and they'll be like, you have some complex thing. And they're like, sure, we're going to send our testing panel at you. And they do a GI effects and they do a food panel. And they're like, well, see, you're allergic to these foods. Take these foods out and take this probiotic and we're all set. And it's like, the foods are the end of the the end of the whole issue.
Yep.
I mean, that's the dysregulated immune system. Yeah, taking it out's going to help, but it's not going to fix a damn thing. And so there's a little bit too much of this. Just press out these. All right, here's $2,000 worth of testing, and my little algorithm is going to say, don't eat these things and take your probiotic. And so the tools are good as long as the clinical picturing is really there to match it.
Super helpful there. And I think we're really looking for signs of poor detox. I mean, even a routine lab.
Yeah. So again,
still, it's broad.
Testing's not great. I mean, you see a lot of toxins high, you need that there's a problem. But then, clinically, you're going to see it in the patient. The patient, there's usually fatigue, there's anxiety, there's brain fog. Now, that's a lot of different things that could be doing that.
Of course.
But detox stuff, you see a lot of skin expressions. You'll get a lot of poor digestion. You'll get a lot of this is due to poor bile flow. So detox, if you look at detox, it starts at a cell or in the extracellular environment. You got a toxin, you got to link something onto it. So you have to have the molecule to link on. You need the enzymes to link on. You might have phase one reacting at first, and then it's got to travel down to the liver, pull into the liver, and dump with the bile into the GI. And then it has to go out with the stool and not be reabsorbed. Or it's got to make its way to the kidney and get peed out. So you can have enzymatic problems up here. Chronic inflammation is blocking phase 2 and phase 3. You can be in chronic sympathetic stress, which is blocking all that bile flow down there. When you block the bile flow, the toxins, when they build up, they dump out, they go through the system, they go to the kidneys, they go to the brain, they come out through the skin. So you'll see like a sort of achiness, lower back pains, might be upper right quadrant problem, and itchiness from the bile flow issues, a lot of neurologic stuff, a lot of immune dysregulation where they're reacting to everything. And so detox is going to be poor at that point. Anytime there's been a chronic infection, detox is going to be poor because the inflammation is turning it down. So opening up detox is kind of always part of what we do, but sometimes it's a bigger deal than others, especially when you run some metals panels, some toxins panels. You see that there's a lot of stuff in there. But just the very fact that you're in an unwell chronic disease type of situation and you likely have these infections means you have a chronic inflammatory pattern that's been dysregulated, and inflammation blocks detox. So you're going to have a toxic load. So it depends how you might have a toxic load. It's causing immune dysregulation that allows the infections to come in while the immune system's all reacting to all the antigens around you. Or it might have been an infection that then caused the inflammation that cause the accumulation of the toxins that furthers this immune dysregulation. So it all gets put together, and you can be guaranteed there's some aspect of all of it in every case. But when is it like that's the main gun and you really have to go after that? That you usually get to know from some of the testing.
So many moving pieces.
Yeah, there is. You just got to get used to them. You got your toxins, you got immune dysregulation, you got infections. And then you got your guns for them all, and you're like trying to thread them through and make a nice protocol for people. And sometimes you start over here and move over there.
But it sounds like, generally speaking, at the base of a lot of these cases, it's not wrong to start with supporting detox pathways. A lot of these things are gentle,
is.
right?
We, especially when you understand detoxification and what goes in with it, because autophagy is coming along with it. So those two, you have environmental detox, which is these phases, and you're linking something and you're pushing it out. And then you have this inner detox, and that's autophagy, and that's breaking up old cells and recycling them. It's breaking up old mitochondria. It's breaking up fat accumulations. And that's a huge part of controlling inflammation and controlling, the movement of the cells into senescence. And so it wakes the system up and starts clearing the system. And it starts, a lot of what we talk about in membrane health is repolarizing membranes. And a lot of these triggers like AMPK is resetting polarization, in your liver, resetting bioflow, getting rid of fatty liver. All these things are good for the system. And there's a huge metabolic aspect to it. So NRF2 for environmental detox is locked together with AMPK, which is this switch for autophagy. And when you have that switch, you're also becoming metabolically flexible. And so you're better, you have more insulin sensitivity. You have a better metabolic flexibility to go into burning fats or just burning carbs. So you're setting the tone for your immune system to work better, and your mitochondria to work better, and your whole system to come back. And then the last part of that, in autophagy, you're going to have damaged mitochondria and you have mitophagy. But the highest level of immune function, you got Th1, that first attack on stuff. But then eventually you take those microbes and you put them into an autophagosome, which is like this little liposome you make in your cell to break things up. And you break them into parts and you make specific immune patterns against them. So you make the antibodies specifically for them. That's part of autophagy. So you're increasing that function too when you're hitting on these detox buttons. So it's not just that, everybody needs to open up drainage and detoxification pathways, especially when they're trying to get well. It's sort of refreshing it's getting you to the base of the whole system and getting core processes to work again. So it's more than just, I got to get the Roundup out of it.
And how do you suggest people start opening up detox pathways? Maybe there's people listening in saying like, what, I understand how to limit my exposure to toxins. I think most of our audience knows how to limit their exposures from different environmental sources, from sources within their homes, within their foods, etc. And I know you said that testing for detox pathways is kind of challenging. I know you said there could be some symptomology there that could kind of give us hints as to maybe certain things are blocked for us. But how would you recommend someone going about starting or embarking on a new detoxification process?
And so there's different language that we use, like opening up drainage. So what is drainage? So you've got lymphatic drainage. It's just really it's more than circulation. It's lymphatic circulation that's moving when you're getting movement, but that all gets locked up when you've got a lot of junk and inflammation in it. So you need a lot of movement to move that. But then kidney drainage is just peeing, so you need diuretics. Then liver drainage is bioflow. So the liver works by pulling things in from the blood, metabolizing them, and then dropping them into the bile. So the toxin transporters actually are bile transporters. So when bile flow is stopped, toxin flow is stopped. So cholestasis is toxostasis. That has to move. So you're using cholagogues, you're using bitter herbs. We use a ton of bitters. We have these two products, Bitters number 9 and Bitters X. And we have bitter compounds through all kinds of different products. and they stimulate that bioflow. So getting the bioflow, getting the toxins to move out of the liver and into the GI is a really big thing. And that's just bringing better compounds into your life. It could be putting taurine in, it could be taking some ox bile. And once you get that flowing, and then you just need to be binding in the GI. So that's just simple. Like we have Ultra Binder, which has charcoals and zeolites, other clays and other binders, specific metal binders, a cocktail of binders, but even just charcoal capsules. So you're going to need to be flushing. So you're drinking water, you're getting movement, you're peeing, you're getting bioflow with your bitters, and you're getting binders on board. That's opening up drainage, getting things to go. So you've got this tissue compartment, you've got a blood compartment, then you've got excretion. So first you open up the drainage or the excretion, because whenever you've been like jacked up for a long time, stressed and inflamed, all these things block the flow out. And so you open up, and when you block the flow out, you build a lot in that central blood compartment. You got a lot in the tissue, but you got a lot of circulating stuff, and you're feeling kind of crappy. So first you open up drainage, bring down those blood levels before you start kicking the stuff out of the tissue stores out to come through. When you want to get to the tissue stores, then you're going after NRF2 and AMPK. These are cellular triggers that move the tissue-bound toxins out. And so NRF2 upregulation, this is a stress response in the cell to get rid of toxins or free radicals in the cell. So how do we upregulate that? Things like lipoic acid, sulforaphane, some of the polyphenolic antioxidants like quercetin and resveratrol and luteolin. DIM works into that. Silymarin works into that. So first we've opened up the drainage, then we want to hit in with these big NRF2 upregulators. And the two strongest really are sulforaphane and are lipoic acid. And so that's what we use to really hit those switches and start moving stuff out of the cell. So open up the drainage, drain that middle ground, and then start throwing things out of the system.
I want to know, Dr. Shade, what do you do on a daily basis to tap into these processes and optimize them?
Almost nothing on a daily basis, because we need to pulse these things on and off. You can't be pushing them all
That's
the time.
important.
Now,
sure.
that was my almost nothing was kind of a joke about the daily basis. Now, our whole system for detox, we call it simply push catch. So when you take, something like our liver sauce, which has the bitters in it, has the lipoic acid, it has the mast cell stabilizers all in there. And when you take that, there's a mobilization from the tissues to the blood to the liver, and then through the bile into the GI. And 30 to 45 minutes after you do that, you throw the binders in, because everything is mobilized that quick. And then you catch it all in there with the binders. So we call that push catch. Now you can add on phosphatidylcholine, more phosphatidylcholine, glutathione, some kidney support, and that's all. You might put in, some Lyme stuff or viral stuff, and that's all part of your push. And then you got your catch down here. So what do you do in the middle? Now for me, it's push, sauna, catch. So my clear light sauna is about 3 feet away from my bed. I have a big bedroom, and I got the sauna right in there. I wake up and I turn that baby on. I go have some coffee, and then, do my push, jump in the sauna, take my charcoal towards the, my ultra binder towards the end of the sauna. And I run that program a lot. I probably do that, 4 days a week. Depending on how much traveling I am or how much social activity there's been, there might be more of that. And that's really beauty, especially like when I was trying to get better with Lyme. I was doing that like every freaking day, because you get the heat shock proteins from the sauna, and the heat shock proteins kind of act like adaptogens in you. They kind of clear you up. You start feeling better and working better. Your immune regulation comes back on. In fact, a lot of adaptogens upregulate heat shock proteins. So there's these different ways to put stuff together. You do the push, and you do some yoga and the catch. You take a walk and some catch. And so those are big for me, keeping things clear like that. I take a lot of cardio because, I'm sort of prone to hypertension. So I take that. And then I'll take some of the longevity stuff. And it could be, we have one called Longevity Elite, the NABA Black Labels, another adaptogen blend. We have an NAD formula that's NMN with methylation. I take NAD fairly often. And this one called AMPK charge that I mentioned that puts you into ketosis, I take that a ton because it's hitting AMPK, it's hitting sirtuins. We're trying to hit a lot of this longevity stuff at the same time that we're clearing things out.
So much to consider. I'm hearing quite some regularity to this, though. I mean, you said 4 days a week with that kind of protocol, but
yeah,
and that's probably
like I say, you just don't do everything every day,
right?
There's a pulsing and a cycling of all that stuff, and there's a lot of other products that I pepper in there and use.
Sure, and we can't completely avoid these toxins and these infections, and I mean, there's so many
totally
stressors.
Especially red wine. There's no way to avoid that, so you have to have extra milk thistle at night.
Of course, that's essential.
That's a game changer.
I love it. Okay, so Dr. Shade, I know there are some exciting new products coming down the pipeline to address some of these very stubborn chronic infections that a lot of our functional practitioners deal with all the time. Yeah. I'd love to hear more about these products. They may help support the immune system for things like Lyme. What makes these products different than others on the market?
Yeah, well, here it's delivery system and, choices of ingredients again. And so my friend Diane Mueller asked me to make a cryptolepis.
Oh, we know her.
Darling of the Lyme world. She's like, put it in a liposome, it'll be even better. So I made that. And then I wanted one that was directed towards co-infections too. And so there's the liposomal cryptolepis, and then Cryptocomax, that's got a broader immune support for some of the co-infections. And so that's Cryptolepis, Artemisia, and Japanese knotweed. Now, those three together cover a lot of ground. I mean, a lot of people in their mixed formulas will put 10 different herbs in it. But if you look, all right, here's the things we're trying to address, and Babesia and Bartonella and Borrelia. And, in that matrix of those three ingredients, you hit all of those multiple times in multiple different ways. And that was the one that really changed the game for me, because I didn't realize. Now, in my history, I didn't tell you that as a child, I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, right? And we used to go vacation on Plum Island. And I would go body surf on Plum Island. Do you know what Plum Island is?
I'm not aware. No.
A lot of our readers know. There is an island right off of Lyme, Connecticut, that housed a military facility that did military bioweapons, where that's where Willy Borgdorferi worked. And it was an island off there, and they used to let us go body surf out there. And then I would grow up vacationing in the woods in New York State and stuff. And, of course, I was living in Pennsylvania. So I was in Lyme Central over there. And I don't know if I got, if this was a really old thing and it just came out of the woodworks, or if I got reinfected or infected while I was back in New York State. But I had Borrelia, I had Bartonella, I had Anaplasma, I had Ehrlichia, I had Mycoplasma pneumonia, I had chlamydia pneumonia, I had Epstein-Barr, I had cytomegalovirus, all raging. And I started making these products, and I realized that I had this dizziness and this fear of heights going on for a long time. I'd had this immune dysregulation, these neurological symptoms going on, and all of them cleared up. And as they were getting better, I'm like, I better test this. And I went and did I was using Infecto Labs and looking at that T cell response that they do. And it was beautiful because I was able to clear all that neurological stuff out with the Cryptocomax. And then I had a bunch of viral activity going still. And we'd been using a cat's claw to support immune for viral. And then we just upgraded that, put a ton of propolis, a whole bunch of a more concentrated lemongrass or a lemon balm extract and lemongrass essential oil and olive leaf extract in there. And it was that one's a rager. And so, you got the crypto, you got the crypto Comax, and then you've got this stuff called Cat's Claw VMAX for sporting against viral. So all three of those now are real strong. We've been working those with Turnpole Wellness, and they've done tons of cases now. They love these products. And when you look at treatment for Lyme, you've got stuff that's working on your immune system's ability to kill. You've got then immune modulators, because the immune system is so shifted away from Th1 towards this excessive reactions, Th2 and Th17. You're allergic to all your food. You're allergic to everything going on. And the immune system's just winding up. And sometimes after you've even killed everything, just any insult to your body can cause an inflammatory reaction that can kind of catch fire, and all those symptoms come back. And so what can just calm the system down and take away that excessive? So we have killing things, and then we have cooling things. And that would be like mast cell stabilizers, like our Histaid is luteolin, quercetin, DIM, and vitamin C. Then vitamin C is catalyzing breakdown of histamines. DIM, we use a lot of DIM, and people know that for estrogen metabolism pathways. But, I started taking it, and I found all these food allergies going away. And so I started looking it up, and it has this strong immunoregulatory aspect of downregulating Th2 and 17 and upregulating T helper cells. And that's bringing this immunotolerance into the system, so just calming things down. And then cannabinoids. Cannabinoids, people don't understand how much they work on the immune system. Mast cells and macrophages all have cannabinoid receptors. Judy Mikovits calls it the dimmer switch. It just turns that stuff down, cools down that hyperreactivity, especially the stuff that's going on in the brain. So much as this is mast cell activation in the brain. So we use some combination of those to cool people down. And they'll see a lot of times where they've done a long treatment of Lyme, but the symptoms are winding back up. It's just using that to cool it back down. Or as you're coming out of, you've killed enough stuff and you just want to calm the symptoms down, you're using that cooling switch. So you got those two, and then you always have detoxification going on. Whenever that system inflames up and wraps up, and especially when it's got some neurological aspects and you're getting neuroinflammation, you immediately lock up the bile transporters. Stress itself, estrogen dominance itself, inflammation itself, all lock this up. So we're always trying to keep this open and flowing, keep the kidneys open and flowing, because it's all these toxins are coming out in waves, and the immune system's winding up in waves. And so just keep that flow going all the time while you're modulating this kill and cool cycle.
And what does timeline look like for these? And are you using like these kill and cool supplements or protocols at the same time, or is it kind of like different phases?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it's like a gas pedal and a brake, and you're kind of going back and forth. Now, yeah, you're trying to go in cycles where you're solidly in the cool, you have detox being opened up, and you're solidly in the kill, and you're going to have these on board. Maybe you'll have a little bit of them through the middle of the day, but you train the patient, like when things really wind up, step over here, calm it back down a little bit. And, but that, the kill cycling, that takes almost 6 months. Lyme takes a long time to clear out. But the worst of it's in the beginning. And that's when you have these things as needed to calm down this cycle, but you're dealing with a little more inflammation, a little more kill in the beginning. Then it gets easier and easier and easier. And, but then as you're coming out of it and you're getting better, you're going to see these symptoms wind up. Like, see, the thing is, you get a bike accident and you get an injury that causes local inflammation, and it catches fire, and it runs into all the old patterns that were there from the Lyme. And so those are times where you just want to cool things down. And, we discussed this with Turnpole quite a bit, and they found a couple of the cases that came back, they're like, I think we really did enough on killing, where they just tried this immune modulation and that fixed everything.
And what's really beautiful about this, Dr. Shade, is what I'm seeing is that these are over-the-counter products. You can really teach the patient, what do you need and when do you need it, and use it as needed, especially with the cooling.
I so believe in that. You got to teach the patients how to run it themselves, how to run their own ship. I believe that so much in all the supplementation. It's also why I believe patients should have access to testing, because when you get in it, you take control of your health, then you're running the ship. And, you always need another person looking over your shoulder, checking things.
Sure.
And you always need the practitioner, but you're never going to get better if it's like you're calling the office every third day. Well, now my ear hurts. What do I do now? And you're, shift this and then shift that. And so, yeah, you got to put it in their hands and get them used to running these things.
Yeah, I really love that approach. I always say, like, you're the only person that's been in your body every single day of your life. You're the only person that's felt every symptom. You're the only one that's been to every doctor's appointment. And I really love
Yep.
that idea of really teaching the patient of like how to adjust these things on their own and really
Yeah.
tune into kind of how they're feeling, because it just has such a different effect from that approach than for me as a patient to go look at the list of supplements and protocols and just check boxes.
Yeah.
Because then you're not really, you don't really know why you're taking something. You don't really know what the intention is behind everything.
No.
So I love that you're really preaching that here. I know we're coming up in the hour, but I do want to squeeze in another question on detox. So obviously you're really a specialist here, but what mistakes are you seeing kind of in our field with detoxification? Because I hear so many different types of approaches, protocols. Some people think of detox, they just think of like trendy green juices. I know some people think of like Herxheimer reactions. So like what are some things that are just kind of, I guess, bothering you in our fields when it comes to that?
Yeah. I mean, you hit on some of them. One is not understanding and respecting detoxification and thinking, it just works all the time. You got kidneys and liver, or thinking that like a juice fast on the weekend is going to clear me out. Yeah. I mean, that's clearing out your GIs, getting some lymph going. And, that's definitely helpful, but it's not getting in systematically, hitting these triggers to really release the big dogs and get them out of there. But if you're going to do that and you're going to pull these big triggers that release cellular stores, then you got to have all the drainage lined up. So some people will just run around and, all right, here's a bunch of NAC and lipoic acid. And you just got to cram a bunch of that and everything will be good. And then you get the cells. So what is a Herx even? So we start a bunch of stuff moving into the blood, say it's going to the liver, and the liver is not primed to get that drainage. Then this stuff builds up in the liver and it gets to a crisis point. You're going to have inflammagens and toxins in there and free radicals. And then what does the liver do? So it can't dump it into the bile. It's all pinched there. And so it builds up. It has to get rid of it so it doesn't die. And so it dumps it back into the blood. And then where does it go? It goes to the kidney so it can pick up that slack. But all those same things then blow out the kidney. So you got this lower back pain. Then it's circulating through. It's starting to come through the skin and you're itching because that's bile salts, actually. Anytime you're like doing a lot of this, take some bitters and see if it goes away like immediately. Because bile salts build up there long before they turn you yellow and you get jaundice. And they go to the brain, and then you've got anxiety and cognitive problems and brain fog. All that's a Herxheimer because you didn't couple the movement of the toxins to the movement of the bile and then bind them up in the GI. And so, one is not respecting detox enough, and the other is just doing it willy-nilly and doing stuff to release cellular stores without lining up all the drainage pathways. And it's really nice how this works with the nanoparticles because everything gets in, like all of our pharmacokinetic curves of looking at, you take this particle, where does it go into the blood? Everything looks the same. It's all peaking between 20 and 30, 35 minutes and then going back down. So everything goes in, mobilizes, and then you come in with your binder and then you wrap that all up in one little neat package. And so we're fortunate with these delivery systems that we can do that so tightly and sweetly. And then the last thing to understand about detox is how much the autonomic nervous system is affecting that. So you've got your sympathetic fight or flight autonomic dominance, and then you have your parasympathetic rest, digest, repair, regenerate, detoxify. And if you just say rest and digest, you miss the whole regenerative aspect of the autonomic nervous system, which is the whole key. So all healing happens there. And so then if we're not addressing that, and that could be with our supplements like CBDs and GABAs and skullcapper, things that calm things down, progesterone. Notice I mentioned estrogen and progesterone already because estrogen dominance blocks bile flow and gives you glutamate excess, which makes you sympathetic dominant. And progesterone makes you parasympathetic, and opens up bioflow. So just all these different tools to calm down the parasympathetics to allow you to go and detoxify. So respect it, drain it, and chill out the brain any way you can.
Wow. It's so complicated and so much to digest. I feel like I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to this episode. I got like 30 million more questions, but I know we're coming up on the hour here. So thank you so much, Dr. Shade, for your time today and really bringing so much science to this episode. Like, I feel like I have so many things and that I can go research now. And I feel like you planted so many seeds in me. I'm like, oh, I got to go look into this,
A lot of
and that,
rabbit
and the other
holes.
thing. Oh, so many. I would love to have you back on and really deep dive into kind of like one of these topics that we touched
It's
on.
a lot to cover: Lyme, immune dysregulation,
Yeah.
and detoxification in one podcast.
In an hour. Yeah, not
Yeah.
even an hour. I agree with you there. So if anyone tuning in today wants to connect with you or really follow up, maybe look into, some of your products, where can we find you online?
Yeah, quicksilverscientific.com on Facebook and Instagram. It's Quicksilver Scientific. I also have Dr. Christopher Shade on Instagram. And get on our newsletter, look on our site, look on YouTube, look at all the stuff in there. And if you're a practitioner, even if you're not going to buy anything from us, get an account, because online you get into the professional portal. There's like 35 or 40 webinars on there. They're all an hour and a half long, going deep into all these different aspects. There's an online learning management system about toxins, toxin testing, and detoxification that's free. There's a module on hormones and hormone supplementation. That one costs a little bit, but we give you samples of all the hormones that cover all that cost for you. So there's tons and tons of educational material on there with a big education department. So get an account and look on your pro page.
That's huge. That was my last question
Yeah.
for you, Dr. Shade, is education, because there's a lot to unpack here for practitioners and just the well-intentioned, health-minded individual listening who wants to, maybe do this on their own before tapping into.
And
go to
still on
functional
YouTube,
practice.
there's a lot of stuff for me on YouTube. We're a little bit more controlled on material we put out now, regarding the FDA, but there's a lot of old stuff, good lectures from out there in the field.
Immensely helpful.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to go make an account myself. I can't wait to
definitely do.
to
And then
dive in there.
it's like, it all becomes simple. You're like, oh, this is not bad.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Shade. It's been a pleasure having you on today. And for everyone tuning in this week, until next week, wishing us all vibrant health and wellness.
Thank you so much for being here today. Don't forget to leave us a review and subscribe so we can continue to pay it forward together. And remember, the key to longevity is knowledge. Keep learning, growing, and tuning in to the Vibrant Wellness podcast to discover the latest insights and strategies for optimal health. Join us again next week. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The views expressed by guest and host are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy of Vibrant Wellness. As always, consult your healthcare provider before applying any recommendations that you heard here today.